Magmaw Heroic is a fairly comfortable heroic encounter. It's not got a ridiculous amount of mechanics, but there's a lot of things you can do to make this fight easier, and there's even a bit of a cheese tactic. I'll touch on that, but we don't do it that way, so I'll tell you what it is in case you do want to do it that way, but it does actually make it a lot easier, to be fair. Now, I don't want this to be an in-depth guide. It's meant to be more tips and tricks for the boss, but I will give you an overview of exactly what you should be doing on the boss. You're going to have one tank that stands to the right-hand side of Magmaw as you're looking into the room, and the rest of the group's going to stack close at the left. You'll leave 3 ranged out, one preferably being a hunter, to bait the infernal meteors and the pillars. The way you handle this is you wait for a meteor to come in, and then you take a few steps away from it, then you wait for the pillar, and then you take a big movement away from the pillar. The Blazing Inferno is what summons the big adds. The big adds will be taunted in by a second tank to the rest of the group that stood on star, as you can see here, and then nuked down. All the range should be focusing on the parasites, while the melee just cleave the big add down, and as soon as it does Armageddon, everybody switches to it so it doesn't blow the raid up. When the boss casts Mangle on the tank, 2 people need to just jump up on the head, press 1 and aim the chain at the spike. This will bring the boss down and he takes double damage. This is the nuke phase. Rinse and repeat while your melee are killing the big adds and your ranged are kiting and killing the parasites. And honestly, that's about it. You just want to put heavy damage into the head when it comes down and it's taking double damage. And ideally, you want to be killing it with the head coming down twice. If you've got low DPS, it might take 3 times. Now, that's the basics of the fight. So now I want to give you some tips and tricks, what we use personally to make sure that this boss dies. Firstly, the key to success is Lava Spew. Now, Lava Spew's a big AoE that the boss does, and basically just does massive raid-wide AoE. Now, this is where you need a good cooldown rotation. Before the head comes down for the first time, you're going to see 3 Lava Spews, at which point by the time you get a 4th, all the raid cooldowns are going to be back up again. As long as we're not talking like 5-minute cooldowns like him or something like that. Now, it's important to just set up a rotation. In a group like what we're running here on screen, we'll be using Barrier from the Priest on the first, we'll then be using AMZ from the Unholy DK on the second, and finally, we'll AM from the Holy Paladin on the third, and then we'll just rinse and repeat. Anytime you find a cooldown isn't quite back up, then just call for personal cooldowns. The best time to use personal cooldowns is on the Spew, because it's the most predictable, high source of damage that goes out raid-wide. If you're struggling to heal this, it probably will be purely because of poor cooldown management, so this would be number 1 in terms of top tips for this boss. Secondly, if you're having problems killing the parasites, the cheese tactic that a lot of people are using, and when I say cheese, I do use the term fairly loosely because it's quite common, it was even used back in the day, that's using a Frost DK. So you'll literally just have a Frost DK kiting the parasites on his own with Chillblains for days. He'll literally kill all of them on his own slowly, just by kiting them around the room, and everyone else can just focus on the boss, and this makes the fight a lot quicker. Now, we don't do this because we do have some pumper range DPS that just destroy the parasites, but quite honestly, if we had the option of a Frost DK in this particular run we're doing here, I would have probably opted for it. If you're struggling to keep the tank alive during Mangle, it's worth noting that the tank can actually have bop. So this will literally make the tank immune to damage completely from the Mangle for the entire duration. So if you're having problems keeping everybody alive while also keeping the tank up when he's mangled, chuck a quick bop on him. That'll do the job. When it comes to your ranged handling the parasites, another tip would be don't be scared to use things like misdirection to try and MD the adds all into one place. As long as you're killing the adds fast enough, it doesn't really matter who's getting MD'd. It's just all about keeping the parasites moving in the same direction. And the final tip is about the last phase. Getting a good transition into phase 2 can really make or break the fight. When Magmaw reaches 30%, Lord Victor Nefarious is going to start doing Shadow Breath, and it does a lot of damage. He's going to launch volleys of shadowy flames at random players, and the Shadow Breath inflicts shadow damage to all players within 5 yards of his target, so it's important that everybody spreads 5 yards, and you nuke the boss as quickly as possible. At this point, just ignore the adds, have them kited away, and just focus the boss. The thing here is ideally you want to be pushing past 30% while the head vulnerability phase is going on. So if the boss is at, let's say, 33% and you know he's about to go down so you can chuck 2 people up to get point of vulnerability on the boss, just wait, stop all DPS, wait till his head vulnerability comes in, then push past 30% and pop lust and nuke. Now, I know Magmaw's not one of the more difficult fights per se. I just wanted to give you a few tips that we use, and I'm going to be doing these for all the bosses. So if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe so you don't miss the other 12 bosses to go, and I'll see you on the next one.